Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Doctor Who. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. It's really interesting because there's two different stories kind of going on at the same time. Obviously, it seems connected, but we'll kind of dive into that a little bit later on. I'll kind of circle back to that. But first and foremost, we have the Doctor and the team landing far in the future, where basically Cybermen have wiped out what is essentially most of humanity. Like the put where they're at, it's like, oh yeah, this settlement of like 7 or so people might be the last of humanity, and then it's like, wait, what? Also learning that like, oh, the Cybermen kind of potentially wipe out. It's like, well, there's the Doctor being like, oh, basically there's no easy way to tell you that basically the Cybermen win and basically wipe out most of humanity. So they're trying to do whatever they can to help. They come with their equipment and stuff like that. Obviously, they help out everyone that's in the settlement, like the 7 or so. They put up stuff and and explaining everything. They end up bringing up some interesting stuff, like basically trying to create a barrier. There's supposed to be this device that Graham was setting up that was supposed to be it's supposed to kind of remind them of who they were as humans, and that emotional shock is kind of like take them down. Also, the fact is, apparently they're allergic to gold. I'm like, has that ever come up before? Maybe it hasn't. I just don't remember. I don't remember them ever making a point of that. So it's like, oh, and apparently it's like kind of a bit of a rumor, but sadly, no matter what they ended up doing, it didn't work. Because have they Cybermen done the whole drone thing before with their heads as drone? That must be like a further future advancement. Because obviously most Cybermen are just, your standard Cybermen. So I'm like, the fact is, like I said, I don't remember. Like I said, the last time we dealt with Cybermen was in series 10, and I don't think that was a thing. Maybe it wasn't. It's just, like I said, it's been a couple years, so I don't remember. But I'm curious. But nevertheless, it's that situation of like, sadly, not only did the Doctor's equipment not help, fact of the matter is people still ended up dying. And it sucks because the Doctor was like, trust me, I got this, I'll protect you, I'll look after you. And it's like people died. And it's like, for the Doctor, it just feels like, because I think the Doctor's already got that feeling of like the Ceruleum landed in the last Cyberman's hands in the first place because she handed it over. So I think it's already that, so you're desperate to kind of correct your mistake. You wanted to save a life, but you kind of basically endangered so many. There's no easy solution in this whole situation, even though, she made it clear that, last episode there was no easy solution, even though it might seem easy, one for many. But then again, who knows how this one's life would ripple throughout time and affect so many others, so it had just as much of a crucial effect on everything as well. So I think that desperation of trying to make up for what she believes to be kind of a mistake, that plus like this mistake where it's like, I wasn't able to save these people, especially one of the dudes, it was his brother that ended up dying. She had told everyone not to run no matter what happens, but one of them ended up running, and then someone else followed behind, and they both ended up dead. And obviously, Yaz, Ryan, and Grandma was like, yeah, it didn't work. I know. We don't have any more equipment to fight. I know. And she got upset. She was like, I know, because that's something you don't see the Doctor in the city. Like the Doctor is like, oh, I'm always in the process of figuring out. She's super upset in this moment because it's like she doesn't know what to do next. Like, because she feels like this was supposed to help and it didn't, and people are dead. And it's like, I think it's one of those moments of not just like, oh, I'll come up with a plan soon, like kind of like, oh, like, fun moments, but like not really fun, but it's just kind of like, all right, brains are working, I'm coming up with an idea. It's not one of those moments. It's just kind of like a serious moment of like, I don't know what to kind of do next. She's like, so I need you to get out of here. They're like, what? They're getting on their ship and they're going to try and run. You need to go with them. And they're like, we're not going to abandon you. She's like, this is not up for discussion. Bringing you here puts you in danger. You're humans, meaning you could be upgraded into Cybermen, so you being here puts you in greater danger. I will draw their attention away. Sadly, it didn't work out perfectly because Graham and Yaz get separated from Ryan. Graham and Yaz end up on a ship, and it ends up taking off. Obviously, Ryan gets left behind with the Doctor. So does the other dude and Ethan. Sadly, the dude died because Ethan decided to stand up to the Cybermen. He was like, all right, I surrender. I'm the only one. But it's like, oh, the leader of the Cybermen, the last Cyberman, ends up killing the other dude, being like, oh, you're so brave. Luckily, the Doctor and Ryan were able to kind of get him out, and they end up hijacking a Cyberman ship. I thought was kind of interesting, like, because the kid later on admits, like, oh, he's able to kind of fly and stuff like that, because the doctor's, like, hacking and stuff and like that. She's like, oh, yeah, I know how to do this because people used to kind of get pissed at me for doing that, but look who's right at the end of the day. I'm right because it came out to help. But the kid, Ethan, is able to kind of do it better than her, and even at one point kind of is operating the ship, and it's like because when he was young, his dad taught him how to do all this when he was like 4, and it's like he's grown up in this war, and this war is kind of all he's known, you know? And so, which, you know, I'm sure the doctor can relate because the doctor had to deal with, you know, the time war and everything. That was a kind of a part of the doctor's life. So it's like, I mean, to be fair, it's not like this is the first thing that the doctor's seen way many wars, so many more battles than, you know, probably most people would in their entire lifetime. So it's just that thing of like, especially because the doctor cares so much for humanity, trying to do whatever it takes to tip the scales back in the favor of humans, just in some shape or form. Interestingly enough, they end up talking to the head honcho Cybermen, you know, the one that we met last episode. But it was an interesting development where we kind of basically learned that he kind of accepted it. He was like, oh, when the Cybermen came, it's like, oh yeah, I'm embracing it, but he was kind of rejected. And at first he was upset about it, but now he sees it was because he was actually chosen. It was interesting because I think, you know, because the doctor was talking about the fact is the reason why you're kind of acting the way you are, you're not acting like a Cyberman. Cybermen aren't driven by emotions, but you're upset because there's that part of you, because you're two components. You're a Cyberman and you're a human. There's still enough of your human side for your emotions to dictate what you do, and that's not something that any Cyberman would let their emotions dictate what they do because they don't have them. They're suppressed, but you're a human, and that's kind of pushing you in this direction, which he's kind of like, I know. And she's like, oh, I wasn't expecting you to agree with me. I should start, you know, billing you for therapy and stuff like that. But for him, it's like the surrealism kind of shows him like what's to come, like what he's going to be next, kind of saying like, you know, fully upgraded, and then beyond that. And she's like, well, what's beyond that? At first I was thinking like, wait, are you saying like Cyberman, like an even more advanced, like maybe like a super Cyberman type of situation, like going from Super Saiyan to Super Saiyan 2 type of situation? Is that's what I was wondering it was about? But he's like, no, beyond that, it's basically the death of everything. Because that also, like, you know, because that's why he has such a, he's so pissed at humanity, because humanity's a reminder of what he still has. That he was kind of rejected for, like, you know. It's kind of like I embraced this whole situation, and yet I was kind of turned away. And he's, you know, he's caught between both worlds, because it's not like he's a human, so he won't be accepted, but he's not fully a Cyberman either. So, you know, he wants to resurrect the cyber race, which even the doctor was like, being a Cyberman isn't a great thing. I don't know why you're acting like it's such a fantastic and great thing. So, oh, while that's happening, Graham and Yaz are with that, what's her name, Rabia, and the others. Home dude who lost his brother is like, as even like at one point Graham refers to him as Eeyore, because he's super pessimistic, like, oh, it's all gonna end, it's all over. Graham's like, all right, Mr. Downey, like, kind of pick it up a little bit, be a little more optimistic. It seems like him and Yaz, to be fair, it's because him and Yaz are time travelers. They're from a different time where it's like, they're like, no, we can be a little more hopeful. These people grew up in this situation. They've lived through the wars and all the death and destruction caused by the Cybermen. So it's like, you can understand why, you know, Yaz and Graham might be a little more optimistic. It's even interesting because even, you know, Graham's talking about, oh, look at it, have the, you know, it's like, oh, look at you almost a little more, because at one point, it's like, oh, look at you almost getting a little more optimistic, Graham was saying to the dude that lost his brother, but it was like, Yaz is kind of like, look at you, how much you've grown, or something like that. And I guess it's because more often than not, Graham is usually the pessimistic. He'll always say something kind of a little pessimistic. So I guess that's kind of what Yaz is like. Oh, look at you, you're kind of, you're not just being kind of a pessimistic old man anymore. You're turning into a bit of an optimist, you know? Because Yaz is kind of like, no, we can do this. Like, you know, Graham, when me and you are together, the fact of the matter is nothing can stop us. Nothing can get in our way. And Graham, you know, I think Graham is kind of vibing off of Yaz's optimism, you know, and being hopeful. I mean, obviously, like, the ship ends up kind of stopping because basically they're trying to reach, I'm blanking on the name because it's basically a place where they can reach basically a border into potentially a portal. It's what we later on find out is basically a portal to another universe, or at least it will randomly drop you off somewhere else. And apparently it never opens to the same place twice. It's kind of what Ravio was saying. So that's why I'm kind of wondering, is that kind of explains some stuff later on. Like I said, we'll circle back to that soon enough. But So that's where they going, because it's kind of a bit of a myth and a legend of like, once you're able to get there, that's where the remainders of humanity have kind of gone to try and escape the Cybermen. And so the ship ends up breaking down, but they end up basically in a graveyard of broken Cybermen pieces, just kind of, remnants of a battlefield, a very nasty battlefield. But luckily, sacrificing like all like the power and turning off everything unnecessary, they were able to kind of jettison. I think they said they used like basically air pressure to kind of push themselves towards the docking bay of like this a cruiser ship of some sort. And on board, Ravia and Graham, which I love that moment of just kind of like, Graham says something, and it's like, oh yeah, he basically says like a Cockney phrase, kind of like basically, let's have a look around. She's like, you're strange. She's like, really? He's like, I'm the most normal one here, and she's like, no, you're strange. And she's like, but that, I don't mean it in a bad thing. Strange is good. I like strange. And Graham's like, oh, it's like that was kind of like a cool moment. But the fact is, they end up finding out there are other Cybermen on this ship. There's like 1,000 on just this one floor, and it's like there's a whole bunch of floors on and everything. So it's like, oh, there's literally tons and tons and tons of Cybermen. That was even the whole thing of like, if we go to like the rendezvous point, how can we be so guaranteed that like we're not bringing Cybermen there? So it's like, what's the whole plan with that situation? Sadly, the last Cyberman dude shows up and he starts resurrecting them. What was interesting is obviously he's operating on one, and we're hearing her screaming, which I guess it's like they weren't fully upgraded. There was still enough human there. So it's like, I guess you got to kill off what's human inside of them, which I'm assuming that ties into like the rest of like the other side of the episode. It's like, oh, we have this this dude finding this child that was kind of left. And then, him and his wife take the child in, eventually adopting the child, raising it as their own, named Brandon. And we kind of get, kind of a slice of life of events of Brandon's life, him growing up, wanting to become a guard and everything. He wants to, do some good. But then we get a scene of him like older as a guard, and the fact of the matter is he's stopping this guy from robbing a place. Okay, he has stolen from people. He shoots Brandon. Brandon falls off the cliff, and it's like, okay. And then Brandon suddenly sits up, and you're like, wait, what? And he's like, no, it's okay. And the doctors check him out. It seems like the bullet didn't even pierce him, or either he did get shot and the bullet wound was going, or maybe it just didn't pierce him. Maybe it pushed him back, maybe the shock of it all. But it's like, no, aside from not just also, whatever the situation is with the bullet, you fell literally off a cliff, and it's like you're not dead. And you could tell even at moments his dad was looking at him like, what the hell are you? So it's like, okay. But then we fast forward even more through his life, and it's his retirement. But then we see like the guy that was kind of basically the one who ended up giving him his job as a guard, but also the dude that was there when he was found, plus his dad being like, oh, you got to come back inside, and they strap him in, and it's like, oh, we're sorry, but we're gonna have to take all of them. Like, you had all these good memories, but sadly they're gonna have to go. So I'm like, okay, so this is part of the Cyberman process. Is that supposed to be like something inside of this particular Cyberman's mind of like, okay, so is it supposed to be just kind of a glimpse into like, oh, this is someone's life, and this is how I don't know, because that's why I'm wondering like what the hell that is. But then part of me was like, is that supposed to be like referencing like the first Cyberman? Is that what that's supposed to be, like how the first Cyberman came to be or something? Like, that's why I'm like, I don't get that. It seemed like so out of place. Of like, what I mean, because it seemed like there was more so like, oh, this is someone transforming into a Cyberman in a sense of like, this is all inside maybe that person, one of those Cybermen that's like not awakened, like this is their awakening in the sense of like wiping out their humanity to make them into a full-blown Cyberman. That's what I was assuming, but I don't know. I don't know. The whole thing kind of confused me. Not unless it's something that gets explained in next episode. Not unless it's something I could have easily just like missed and completely misunderstood in this episode. But it just seems so weird. I mean, obviously it serves a purpose, but I'm just not sure what that was supposed to be. Because like once again, it's like, well, what does that have to do with the fact is that you got shot and you fell and you didn't die? It's like, well, what the hell is that about too? Like, I mean, maybe he is kind of like the precursor to Cybermen. Like maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I'm throwing out conjecture. Like I said, I'm probably completely missing the mark. But all while that's happening, obviously, Yaz and Graham and the crew are trying to like, all right, decide what they're trying to do about that. While at the same time, the doctor Ryan and Ethan end up going to the spot, where they're supposed to meet up, where it's like, oh, this is going to be the portal to the some other place in the universe. And what was interesting, though, is the actor, like I said, I'm blanking on the character's name because it's not the actual planet, the name they kept referencing in the episode. It was that dude who, interestingly enough, is the actor who played Val in Krypton. Basically, Val was essentially he's Superman's great grandfather in the confines of the continuity. Krypton is in like that Superman TV show that was short lived on Sci-Fi. I'm still kind of bummed about that. I'm like, oh, I really like that show a lot. Regardless, that's neither here nor there. Well, it is kind of interesting because, like, well, elements of Krypton were a time travel show. Doctor Who's kind of a time travel show, very much a time travel show. But regardless, it's a whole situation. But they land there, and it's like, okay, like apparently, obviously, he came to this place because much like more people, he thought it was kind of a rumor and everything. But obviously, the portal is here, and he kind of, there were many people that came with, that came to this place much like him, and all of them have gone through, but he stayed behind because foolishly he was wondering like, hey, maybe there was still some fragments of humanity out there. So he stayed behind, hoping that, hey, maybe he can help guide whatever's left of humanity, whatever might be out there. So there's that whole situation, but which is interesting. I mean, I guess that is him being hopeful, like maybe I can be here to help, because even he was like, yeah, don't look at me like I'm some kind of hero, because even the doctor was kind of like, that it's pretty interesting that you would do that. Like, you could have just gone through. But the thing is, he doesn't know what's on the other side. So it is kind of a leap of faith type of situation. The doctor kind of walks closer to it, and it kind of opens up and everything, and then she hears from Yaz and everything about like, okay, what are we gonna do, doctor? It's like, well, she's like, we'll get off the ship. It's like, well, they can't, they're kind of stuck in a control room. Things don't look good because obviously the Cybermen break through and start blasting their lasers, and like that cannot be, that's super not good. And then obviously the portal starts shifting, and it turns into an image of Gallifrey, and it's like, wait, what? And even the dude being like, oh, that's normally what it looks like. So I'm wondering, is this a portal to Gallifrey? Is it a situation where this actually, maybe that's why, because like maybe it goes to a specific Gallifrey, maybe like at this current point in time in history where they are right now dealing with this whole Cyberman situation is when Gallifrey ended up getting destroyed. Maybe like, but then that kind of is interesting because, like he said, it's like it doesn't look like that before. So it's like, okay, so then that must mean a situation of Gallifrey is it had to have looked normal before, not less. So, but they made a point, didn't they? Say that it never. They kind of made it seem like it didn't open up to the same spot twice. That will kind of protect them from the Cybermen. Maybe I completely missed that. So maybe it was somewhere else that looked like, I don't know, or it could have just been like, oh, this is Gallifrey, but at two different points in time, one where the city looks fine. Then my brain starts going off on something. I'm like, my brain starts thinking like something like, you don't think it's going to be some twisty thing where it's like Gallifreyans are actually humans who've been on the planet, who escaped to the planet to escape the Cybermen, but ended up, adapting with the whole like two hearts and everything. That's when like I said, it's just some like random thought that was kind of boggling in the back of my mind. I'm like, okay. And lo and behold, who the hell comes out of it? The Master, and you're like, wait, what? The last time we saw you, you were literally in a different universe with those things. So it's like, how the hell did you escape? And he was like, oh, quite the entrance, huh? And he's like, prepare yourself, doctor, because this is where things change forever. And it's like, what the hell? What does that mean? I don't know. There's so many unanswered questions. Hopefully we get answers to all this going forward into the next episode, because it makes me wonder, is this supposed to be the Master out of, I mean, granted, once again, we haven't seen him literally since episode 2, so who knows what's happened in that frame, that span of time. But maybe whatever this is has something to do with the secrets of Gallifrey that he was kind of referencing, why he ended up destroying Gallifrey in the first place. Or maybe this portal opening gave him an opening. It's like, oh, as long as there's kind of a rift into this universe in some shape or form, maybe he was able to kind of find his way through. Maybe he made a dealing with, because I'm blinking on their names, but they're aliens. Those beings from that other universe that we cross paths with in the first and second episode. Is like, well, what's interesting too, because like, his timing's interesting too, because last time we saw the Cybermen, it was connected to the Master, Master and Missy. So that's why I'm thinking like his timing is interesting too. So is there a correlation there? Is this meant, like, what does it all mean? Is what I'm trying to get across. Graham, Yaz, and the others, like I said, that situation didn't look good. It's like, this is a very dire situation, and I'm very, very curious to see where all this ultimately ends up taking us going forward into the next episode, which is going to be the season finale. So it's going to be crazy to see how this whole situation, this whole chapter ends up closing, just how this whole situation ends up playing out. We'll ultimately have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.